This little piece of papyrus is very important. I want to spend some time on it because it's significant, especially if you consider yourself a conservative, to know about this. This is called the RylandsFragmentP52. The Rylands Fragment, R-Y-L-A-N-D-S, RylandsFragmentP52. The P stands for papyrus. So this is the 52nd papyrus in the Rylands collection. It's a fragment of the Gospel of John. It's dated to Hadrianic times. That's the Emperor Hadrian, which is about 135 or so AD. So that means that based upon the writing style, what they call paleography, paleo means old and graph means to write, so paleography is the dating using old writing styles. They recognize that this is Hadrianic, early 2nd century, from the Gospel of John. Okay? You see the significance? If someone says, you know, you Christians don't understand that your Gospels were written hundreds of years after the fact by people who didn't even know the people involved in the story. They just made it all up at Nicaea. It's a very common view. It's partly the majority view among most scholars, that Christianity was invented at some point far beyond the times of the New Testament writings, and all the Gospels are 3rd, 4th century documents. So you see the significance of this fragment? It's the Gospel of John, and it's dated to the early 2nd century. It was found in Egypt, the Rylands Fragment, P52. So what that means is that by the early 2nd century, the Gospel of John was in existence, right? And in Egypt. And when they study these types of things, they consider migration time. Where did the events of the Gospel of John take place? And where? What part of the world? This is a no-brainer question, guys. No, Gospel of John. The Gospel. It's about Jesus. Jesus' life. Israel. Okay, so the narrative is in Israel, the Holy Land. Where do they find the fragment? Yeah, you're thinking too hard. Don't think so hard. Israel. This was found in Egypt. I think it was near the Delta, I think. There's a lot of Christian and Jewish communities there. I can't remember the name of there's a colony, a Christian colony where they found this and a lot of other ancient texts, including the Gnostic type Gospels and so on.
So this would have been somebody who would have copied from the book of John?
I doubt it's the original autograph. You know, we talk about the autographs, which were the very first time it was written down. However, of all the documents they've ever found, if there's one close that could possibly be a part of an autograph, this is probably it, because it can overlap. When I say early 2nd century, that's sort of the center of the dating. It actually spreads out to either side, and there's some scholars that even put it at the end of the 1st century. When did John die?
100.
What's that? Yeah, around 100. He's the oldest of the apostles. He lived to see the 2nd century, some people think, and this could overlap his life. So you have a text of the Gospel of John that overlaps the life of John. And so it may be within the realm of possibility. This could be a fragment of the autograph, but it's about as close as you're going to get. The point I'm trying to get at is that the events took place in Israel. This was found in Egypt, 500 miles away. They take that into account. There's migration time. So if this document was written in the early 2nd century, that could actually put the events, however far away from the document it is. So that could put the events in the 1st century. Have you ever heard the synoptic problem? One of the synoptic problems, the synoptic gospels, is which came first, right? Matthew, Mark, or Luke, the priority of the different texts. Does anybody think John came first? No, nobody thinks that the Gospel of John come first. They all agree that it's a later gospel. So you see the importance of this fragment? It's from the Gospel of John. It puts John at the beginning of the 2nd century. So where does that put Matthew, Mark, and Luke? So this little piece of papyrus places all the Gospels in the 1st century during the time of eyewitnesses. So don't forget it, right? You definitely want to bring that up if someone says, oh, the Gospels, that was all written hundreds of years after the fact. Well, what about the Rylands fragment? It's something that you have to deal with. Okay? It's interesting, too, that it's from that passage where Pilate is before Jesus and he's questioning Jesus. Remember that part of the story? And Pilate says, what is truth? That's this. It was found in the 1920s. Aletheia. 1920s about truth in America and Europe. It's what they call the modernist movement. It's when all the skepticism of the Age of Reason, the Enlightenment, began to spread out through the popular culture in America and Europe. And it caused a great crisis in faith, the modernist movement. You ever heard the term fundamentalist? The term fundamentalist comes from the fundamentals that were written during this modernist movement, because we were trying to nail down what it is that we cling to as Christians to remain Christian. Those are the fundamentals. And so at the very moment when across the world they're trying to uncover how can we know something, how can we know truth with a capital T, they dig up this little piece of papyrus from the Gospel of John that puts all the Gospels in the first century. And what's the comment about? Aletheia. This is the reverse side. It's a fragment, so there's writing on both sides, both from the Gospel of John. Let me go ahead and read the text to you. One side says, and then said Pilate to them, take him yourself and judge him by your own law. I don't know. This is, if you take my classes, you have to understand that I'm a mystic, okay? I believe that God really is active in the world, and he's orchestrating a lot of events, such as this one. Therefore, if you find a little piece of papyrus in the desert of Egypt that has such significance, then we pay attention to what it says, what it's about. This is about judging Christ by your own law, right? Judging Christ by in other words, we're going to take the things of the Bible and we're going to evaluate it ourselves. Isn't that part of the modernist movement, that we're going to figure it all on our own? The Jews said to him, it is not lawful for us to put any man to death. This was to fill the word which Jesus had spoken, to show what death he was to die. Pilate entered the praetorium again and called Jesus and said to him, are you the king of the Jews? So that's on one side. That's a significant passage, isn't it, in terms of how we deal with Christ and what's going on in the modern world and how they're trying to reinterpret Christ. The other side, Pilate said to him, so you are a king? Jesus answered, you say that I am a king, for this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Aletheia. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Pilate said to him, what is truth? That truth that appears in the text, because it has holes all in it, the truth that appears is this truth. That's the one that was preserved. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. I don't know. Just thought you might want to ponder that for a second. The Rylands fragment, P52. All right, let that sink into your R-Y-L-A-N-D-S. L-A-N-D-S, Rylands fragment, P52. Part of the whole, Rylands is a family, I guess, that has collected lots of ancient papyri. This one is one you need to remember.
And the date again, sir?
It's dated to Hadrianic time by the writing style, which is early 2nd century, early to mid 2nd century. That's the reign of the Emperor Hadrian.